If you are the founder of a company, of course, you're going to be in the big picture. You want to win for yourself, for the business. It's not so much competing with other people. When you are working to fuel your optimal performance on a daily basis, to grow, to evolve, you're actually almost competing with yourself to be a better version of yourself every day.
Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of the Unstoppable Woman podcast. I am super excited to bring to you today an amazing guest. I'm super excited to be talking to her. Her name is Shauna Griffiths. She is a marketing specialist. She's built her own business, SLG Impact, and she is a Division I collegiate athlete. That's from her past, not anymore. And we were just laughing about that. And she's like, yeah, I have the scars to prove it too. I mentioned that not only because I want to hear what the scars are, like what was that like, but we connect on this level of growth, like everything needs in your business needs to be going for growth in your life. If you're really leading your life, you're creating an exquisite life for yourself, you're always in growth. And so I know that her history in athletics, there's a little bit of competition there. And I want to hear how that plays into how she approaches growth as a female entrepreneur in running her own business now. So Shauna, welcome to the show. So good to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's truly an honor to be here. I've had it marked down on my notepad and I keep looking forward to it. So I'm glad the day is finally here. We're recording.
This idea of being a collegiate Division I athlete, you had some competition and you had the discipline, the drive, the structure. All of these are traditionally, we all have the masculine essence and the feminine essence in us, but that is like, those are qualities that tend to be this like discipline, persistence, going for it, drive. I got a lot of that too, even though I wasn't a Division I athlete by any means. How has that played into the building of your own business? Like you consult, you help other people, and we're going to be talking a lot about the marketing strategies that you have for people. But how has that played into you really growing your business? Has it been an asset? I imagine yes, but also what's the shadow side of that?
I actually talk about it a lot in my podcast, in the things that I write about, is this idea of a business leadership athlete. And I think there's so much crossover between exactly what you said. It's that mindset, that coachability, wanting to perform at your optimal. And so it does exactly what you just said. It takes practice. It takes that commitment, that drive to show up every day. And I actually talk about this both from when I was an athlete and in business. It's like earning your right to be there every day, whether it's collecting your paycheck but it's doing the things every day to make yourself and those around you better. And it very much does come from, for me, that athletic mindset and I always pause on that because I don't believe that you absolutely have had to have been an athlete or be an athlete to have that. It's literally just the mindset. And so I've had numerous people that I've coached and led that in business that weren't collegiate athletes, but they had that commitment, that desire to, again, like chase their optimal performance on a daily basis. So that's really the crossover. And it's the way that I work to show up every day for myself, for my people I work with, colleagues, as well as the people that I have the honor to work with.
Yeah, I think that's so important what you just said, because you said it in two places. One was you're not only showing up for yourself, like making those around you better, right? That's that team mentality. And you just mentioned, your team, your clients, all of that.
Yeah.
And that you're not just in it for yourself. And that's a big perspective, powerful perspective, I think, because, rising tide lifts up all boats, whether it's on your team, right? Or it's, what you're doing on your podcast, what I'm doing on my podcast, that like all women, let's come together and do better. And I think we do better not when we're in a vacuum in a void by ourselves, but when we're in some form of community, we have a mastermind, but like some form of community where you're like, oh, look at what she's doing, not from a jealousy perspective, not from a like cutthroat, but like from a, oh, calling me up. Okay. That's I could do that. I remember when I was really first growing my own business and I was going from like just making six figures, just over six figures. Like I was at like 138. I was like, oh yes. Okay. Cross the six figure mark. But I had a 7-figure brain. Like I really wanted to go to 7 figures. And I saw examples of other women who had done it in my field. And I remember staring at there were these sort of like placards kind of thing. And I was like, if they can do it, I can do it. There's like I can't. And it was a calling up, even though I had never met these women. I felt like they were sending me a helping hand just by walking the path. So really awesome. So what do you think the role of discipline is in growing your own business?
The way you actually set yourself up for success. So discipline is everything from what are you going to commit to on a big scale for your goals for the year? And you may not know all of that, but at least it's the practice of saying, let me try to ladder up what I'm doing on a daily basis to the big picture. And does it make sense? Is it driving my revenue? So I think so again, from the big picture, and it can be even to the little kind of like minute on a daily basis. What's your to-do list? And I don't mean that from a tactical standpoint. I mean it from a priority standpoint. And when are you using your natural energies at the right time, at the right of the day? And so, again, it's like, that's why again, I say, like, how do you set yourself up for success? And so many times, if we're not thinking in the big picture, we're just saying, what's my to-do list? And I'm going to check it off in the day. And then it piles on more. And, we're exhausted by the end of the day. And if we actually take that extra 5 minutes, end of the day, first thing in the morning, to prioritize, we may say, gosh, I'm going to harness this morning energy. I actually read recently that, and I don't know if this is a blanket truth across all people, but that the most productive time of the day is those first few hours. And so if you have other things in your life and you can't use that entire section, then carve out 5 minutes to, again, just prioritize, because then you can catch yourself if you start to go into a rabbit hole of checking things off lists right away. It's like, well, wait a second, I have my list right here that says I need to tackle these things in the big picture. It just all depends on how do you want to feel at the end of the day, and how do you set yourself up for success to get there.
100%. You're speaking my language, because like the end of day process, of clarifying, and then the first thing in the morning, like, what am I doing? I have a morning routine, and it's evolved and changed over time, but I don't have kids. So I can block the first few hours of the day. I'm a morning person, so that works. I know some people are more evening. They will get the most productive work done in the evenings, but know your energies, right? The rhythm of the day is really important. If I block that time, it almost has become like from 4 or 5:30 in the morning to noon. If I can have that chunk of time without anything scheduled, except maybe a workout, right? Then I am like getting the big, deep work done. Now, just so everyone knows, not perfect. Last Friday, I went off the rails. I thought, oh, I just have a few of those little things to do, and then I'll have the rest of the day, because I block off my Fridays. I'll have the rest of the day for the big stuff. 4:30 in the afternoon came around, and I was like grumpy, just snappish. I was crabby. I was like, because I hadn't gotten anything done. I got all this little, my man calls it administrivia, and I just love that phrasing. I'm like, okay. So speaking my language there, let's back up a little bit. I want to get to the marketing side of things, but I first want to contextualize it. And can you tell us a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey? Like, what stands out to you as pivotal in that journey that would be helpful for other people to know, both the sort of the highs and the lows there, because it's not all, rainbows and unicorns.
It is not. And actually, it started from the opposite of rainbow and unicorn. I was laid off at the start of COVID. I had been working in sports and agency for my entire career, actually, like on the team side, and then again at an agency. And I was senior in my career. And COVID hit, and the agency I worked for did a lot of, again, active lifestyle sports live events. So that, of course, really took a hit. So I suddenly found myself for the first time, I think since I was 10 years old, with no job that was bringing in income. And so, again, kind of going back to what we said earlier, we were talking through the athlete side of things, that mindset. I really go into a mindset of find a way to win. And that means that I am going to rely upon myself more than anything to find a way to. I have a friend who actually showed me this recently, this saying of like, keep making plays. And it's so important. It's like, because you're right, it's every day you're going to take lumps of some sort. It is hard. It is, entrepreneurialism isn't for everyone. And there's a lot of us like me when I got laid off and I started SLG Impact, and I was so blessed to be able to have some clients like the Detroit Pistons and Lego and some others, and do some meaningful work. And then it was hard to actually bring in revenue. And I had that bit of insecurity, and I need to go. One of my clients that I had at the time offered me a full-time role. So I went back into corporate and a full-time role. And then once again, when the tech downturn hit this year, and it was just catastrophic across the board for brands and agencies that were representing those brands, I once again found myself laid off. And it's really daunting to go from, especially as a senior person, to go from paycheck to no paycheck overnight. So again, I'm just like, okay, you know what? Like, how am I going to find a way to win every single day? And that's really, I guess, what's been my drive through it.
I freaking love this. Okay. I just need to I'm like going to dive in there. So good. One, find a way to win. I'm just going to I'm going to use that all the time now. Okay. And keep making plays. Both work. Yeah. Now I want to pull two things out of that. Find a way to win. Like, you're 100% personally responsible for you, even though you're on a team, right?
Exactly.
Like, you have to, if everyone on the team is finding a way to win, isn't like relying on the star player, the whole team freaking wins. So I love that. And then the other thing I talk about to my clients who are entrepreneurs, and some of them are in more early stage entrepreneurship, and there are lots of ups and downs, and you can, but in addition to that, there is this concept that entrepreneurs always have this growth mindset. So they're always looking at the next mountain to climb, at the next hurdle to jump. Yeah. And they're like, even if they just want a big deal, they've signed a big client, whatever it is, they're like, yeah. And they're looking at the next problem that has to be slayed. And so often it gets you into a negative headspace, like, I can't get ahead, I'm so overwhelmed. Also, like, where did my life go kind of stuff. And so I'm constantly reminding people, like, how are you winning? Tell me how you're winning today, right? Yeah. Like, force yourself to look at your day, look at your moment, look at your morning. How are you winning? And I've been there too. I'm like, I am not effing winning right now. This is not the day where I'm winning. Yeah. But if I step back and I go, okay, wait a second, that I'm in the minutia, I'm in my narrow thinking. How do I step back into a wider lens on the situation? Then I'm like, I have the freaking great life, right? I got my great health. I got my amazing house. I've got my amazing clients, my amazing business, my amazing man, right? Like life is really freaking good. Let's see that and get into the energy of that, because that's actually going to help you see the opportunities. And like you said, the plays that can be made. So I love that.
So I want to lean in on something that you were talking about with that when I said about finding ways to win. I think that one of the beauties of what you were just acknowledging and what I probably should have said earlier is that it's not a purely selfish, I'm going to find a way to win for myself. And I think in the big picture, if you are the founder of a company, of course you're going to be in the big picture, you want to win for yourself, for the business. But I think truly that intention that you bring forward to the people that you're working with, even with your clients, it's a much different, I want to call it energy when you bring forth we're saying earlier, like a bigger purpose in, as you're saying, you're finding ways to win collectively. Again, going back to the athlete analogy, you win and lose as a team. And so it really takes that focus, and also going back to what you were saying earlier about the competitive nature that sometimes we find ourselves in, definitely often happens with women, the comparisons. I think that if we are actually able to keep ourselves in check, it's not so much competing with other people. When you are working to fuel your optimal performance on a daily basis, to grow, to evolve, you're actually almost competing with yourself to be a better version of yourself every day.
Yeah. How do you better your best, right?
Exactly. And I will pause and say what we're talking about isn't a natural human state. You were saying, like, we have good days, we have bad days. There's days when I'm like, if I could take one more lump, if I take one more loss, and that's all natural. So that's again why practice is really important, and patience with ourselves, and that dedication that I'm going to screw up today, or today's going to be awful, and tomorrow I will make tomorrow better somehow, some way. And so again, I think those are all just kind of, there's a lot of connectivity in all of those things that we
Yeah.
said throughout our discussion thus far. So I just wanted to point it out to people that if what we're talking about sounds like, oh yeah, it's idealistic, and sure, that sounds really nice. Again, it's comes with practice, and even though we're doing it every
Absolutely.
day with people, we still have to work on it on ourselves.
100%. 100%. Like, I'm constantly looking at myself. I have a growth mindset. I'm probably my toughest grader, right? Like, but I also have learned that in order to have an amazing life, because that's really why we're in it. Like, yeah, we want the maybe you want to make the money. Maybe you want you just want the next goal, like you're goal driven, right? Maybe you want the status, but you want that because you want to feel happy. You want to feel good, right? Like after a certain level, right? Like where you're not starving, you had a little blip there with the COVID stuff. But if you're not struggling, like it becomes about like, I want to be a better version of myself, and I want to make a bigger impact. I want to have a better life, more exquisite life, happier life.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
but I
think.
want to go back to
Oh,
something you said because it's
okay.
really important. Two things. One, I want to talk about women and comparison, but first I want to talk about working on the creative plane versus working on the competitive plane. So some of my podcast listeners may have heard me say work on the creative plane, not the competitive plane. And you might be confused by me talking about Shauna's competitive edge, because as an athlete, you need to have a competitive edge. And the competitive plane, I think there's a difference here between sports and sometimes how people run in business. Like in business, oftentimes it's like kill the competition, anything goes, cutthroat, and you start losing your soul a little bit, and you don't feel good, and you spend a ton of energy, mental energy, like on that, versus that energy being put to creation and creating amazing opportunities, amazing business containers, things you sell, right? All of that. So I think this idea of competition is really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's really a choice every day. Where do you like what center do you want to come from? I think of it a lot of times, it's just a moral compass. Do you want to be actually cutting people's legs out from under them to get ahead? And does that actually make you feel good as a human? And can you look at yourself in the mirror and say, damn, I'm proud of myself? And I'd be hard pressed to find someone that's actually a fulfilling way of life. Yes, here's the thing, people do that for a reason. They do those things for a reason because it works for them to some degree. They are benefiting. You got to ask yourself, how do you want to benefit and how do you want to feel about yourself? The other side of it is, no, actually, I'm going to make a choice every day. And sometimes those are hard decisions where you're going to put somebody else first. You may, as an owner, as a owner of the company, decide that you're not going to take pay for a while because you're going to pay your staff, or you're not going to cut people. I actually know this guy that I've been an advisor's company for a long time. And instead of cutting people, he literally like put it on a credit card to pay them. That's what he chose was most important to him. And so again, that's following a compass that's your guide for how you're going to operate as a business person. And I think it's important.
Yeah, 100%. And everyone will have their own moral guide, and
Exactly.
they will know what's right for them. But like, find that for yourself, and you don't have to do it in a way you don't like doing it. Right. Okay, let's talk about women in competition. My experience is that there was, growing up, lots of mean girls, right?
Took the words out of my mouth. That was
right. And that just captures it all, right? And one of the things that I'm really super proud of in the business and the community that we've built with the Unstoppable Woman is this idea that it's not hierarchical, it's not better than, it's like, come with your vulnerability and come with your wisdom. Like, I see you as intelligent and smart and a contributor, and you also have some vulnerabilities. And if you can come with both, you're seen as a whole human. And there's a elimination of shame that happens, and that lowers it, like raises your exhale, raises that ability to relax in this world. And because you don't feel like you have to be on all the time, and you don't feel like you're going to be threatened by the mean girls, and that is, so I'm super proud of creating that.
Yeah.
But and I find that women often join our community because they don't have other really super smart, driven achiever women, right? These are the achievers, the doers, that are not in the drama, right? Yeah. And they're entrepreneurial, whether entrepreneurs in business or entrepreneurs. And so I guess my question to you, that was a long lead up, but I guess my question to you is, do you find it lonely out there? You've been part of team sports, so you might have a different experience of this, but I know a lot of women feel like they can't find their tribe, and that they have to keep this like mask on and this like almost like this warrior stance on in their day-to-day.
I'm so glad you brought it up, because authenticity is something that I talk a lot about. And being who you are, standing in your strength, I think, again, is a choice. It is a choice whether you're going to take that proactive stance of, I am who I am. I'm going to use all of my qualities. I'm going to continue to grow and learn. Or am I going to choose to actually react to someone else and choose to look at that as competition, or that person is better than me or not, or the point of like, the mean girl type thing. Am I going to choose to actually give that my energy? Am I going to let them rent space in my head for free? No, I have a no drama policy. That means that the people I have in the circle that I have created, again, actively chosen to have certain people in my tribe, as you called it. And it's because those people, it's no drama. It's that same driven mindset, that pursuit of optimal performance, that bigger picture where there's a pay it forward, there's a do good for each other. And but again, like that has come over time for me that I decided those type of people. And that also includes sometimes exiting certain connections or staying away from other people because I don't have time. I don't want to put my time and energy there. So, and when you asked about, it's an interesting thing that you asked about the sports and my backgrounds, because I did come up in environments where I was one of very few women. Traditionally, professional sports, I worked in the NBA family, are traditionally male dominated. To this day, it's still a large percentage is men. There's much more presence of females. But the first time I actually went and worked somewhere after sports where it was a whole bunch of women, I was like, whoa, this energy is totally different. So I had to actively understand and adapt. And, again, so I think it's over time, really being able to feel more comfortable in that environment, in the circle, and choose how I'm going to operate on a daily basis.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's so important to know that even if you have a no drama policy, even if you want to like lift everyone up, not be in competition, not cut anyone down, there are people out there who drain your energy. And
yes,
you have the right to choose who you get to be with. Like it is actually up to you to make that decision. Right.
Yeah. And you said a minute ago about like, none of us are perfect. So I'm not sitting here, and I know you're not sitting here as well, like, oh, I'm perfect at this and everything. There's times I have to keep myself in check where I'm like, oh, I can sense myself feeling a tinge of jealousy or whatever that is. And then, but there's an element when you're really authentic and you lean into your authenticity where you have to ask yourself, like, what the hell am I doing? And is this actually productive or not? And do I want to continue to do this or not? But I don't think that we can truly be looking to evolve and seek our optimal performance if we're not keeping ourselves in check, if we're not honest about ourselves. And this is the kind of exclamation on that. It's being honest about it. And then it all depends on like, what are you going to do? Are you going to continue that behavior, which actually only facilitates you being in your own way? Or are you going to get the hell out of your own way, get your act together, and move forward? But again, it's like, hey, we all have to practice it every day.
100%. And that's personal responsibility right there.
Yes,
So yeah,
totally.
totally. Okay. So let's shift gears to marketing. So that's your lane, which I love. So can you talk a little bit about how you approach looking at marketing when you start working with a client or you're evaluating a client? What are the first few things that you start looking at to sort of assess what needs to happen?
Yeah, I think my first question is understanding the business impact they're trying to make. So I'm going to come in and ask, like, what are we trying to do here? What's the big picture? What's the strategic vision? Where are our revenue goals? What's driving revenue? I think a lot of times people come into the marketing, they think about marketing and they think about, ooh, cool social media content or comments and followings and more like on almost a tactical, what's the sexy on the surface. But again, it's like, wait a second, we have to understand the why of what we're doing and how the entire ecosystem, the business fits together before we can actually make decisions about what we're going to do in marketing. So again, I think from we were saying earlier about the list that we all maintain and the tactical things, those things, especially as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, if you don't have a large staff, those can take up so much of your time, and you can literally get doing all the doing and even lose sight of that ourselves. So again, keeping that, my first thing that I look at is foundationally, what's the heartbeat of this business from a revenue standpoint? What's the overall goals? What are we trying to get to? And then I can start looking at the assessing what's going on, what's working, everything from the staff to who's on the board. Does that complement the entrepreneur? Does that, to the actual marketing channels? What's your overall branding, messaging? How is it showing up in different ways in different channels? But all of those things have to ladder up to it's serving the greater business goals.
Okay, fantastic. I love that. It made
Mhm.
me think about the kind of marketing work that we're doing right now. We're doing a massive, well, I shouldn't say massive. It's probably like a 5% pivot, but
Yeah, yeah.
it feels
It feels
tectonic
big.
in
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And I have a couple of women that I'm working with that are very intimately on this. And there's me, visionary leader, entrepreneur, and one woman just nailed it, and she said, the three of us work so well together because I need what you're saying, Shauna. I need the strategy, the outcomes. What are we going for? I need to land that plane, get that all dialed in before we can do the content of that. I'm sort of
Exactly.
like, okay, vision, and this is what I think we need to do. And I'm like a racehorse, let's just go, right?
Yeah.
And then another woman on my team, she's like, she doesn't get in the weeds, but she's more like, she can map
Implementer.
out
Yeah.
the details of it. And she's
Mhm.
coming at it from the perspective of, okay, well, what about this? And have you thought about this? And have you thought, and the three of us together work so
Yeah.
well together. So I think what you're talking about, like having that strategy piece, was something that was really missing
Mhm.
for me. Even though I thought I had the vision, I had the racehorse version of the vision. I did not have the methodical this, then this, then this kind of impact vision. So super important there. After you do that kind of big picture, what are we going for? What's the impact, if you will,
Mhm.
that we're
Mhm.
looking to have? How do you then go about figuring out the right marketing for your clients? And are your clients mostly in the sports industry? What talk to us about your clients. Where are your clients mostly?
From being in the sports arena, I really know how to connect with and influence I call it like a passion point audience. I call it passion point marketing. So it could be a brand or an agency that is in sports entertainment, but it doesn't have to be. Again, I mentioned that I worked with Lego. Well, Lego is a passion point brand. They do passion point marketing. Their audience has been a rabid love for the brand. And so, I work across the spectrum. I think where I don't touch, simply because out of I don't have that background, is highly regulated. So, whether it was a lot of times like the auto industry or
Finance.
alcohol or yeah, oh, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, finance, banking, that kind of thing. I think for, again, like how I go about it is actually talking about the passion point audience is really important, because we need to understand who are we actually talking to, because again, you can't be everything to everyone. So it's really understanding the insights about what makes the audience tick. What are they doing on a daily basis? A lot of times I'll build out different personas so that we're really clear about who we're trying to talk to, what are we trying to motivate them to do. And again, it's not about, oh, I want to sell them all the time. There is really have to think about, how are we inviting them in? How are we educating? How are we exciting? And hopefully, positively impacting that consideration to purchase, to engage in whatever that experience is. So I think, again, that's how I look at it. First, it's very insights driven. And sometimes I can have the benefit, if the company I'm working with has different research tools and things like that. And again, that's where you can get the data really helps. At the same
Yeah.
time, if you don't have that, there are other ways to say, okay, how can I really think about intuitively? How do we do some audience questionnaires, some surveys, things like that. So
Mhm.
I'm very collaborative in the way that I work with people. It's not an experience where we meet one day, we do a download, and then I come back in 3 weeks with a final finished product. It is
Yeah.
very
No.
discovery. Let's talk to the different stakeholders within the organization, understand. Everybody then feels a bigger invested in the project and wanting it to be, rather than so many times if someone brings in an outside person, they're going to do something. Well, they're like, well, they didn't even speak to me. How do they think they know about my brand or my
Right,
agency?
right.
So again, I think all of those become really important in the way I work with people.
So the companies that you work with are fairly large size companies. We're not talking about solo entrepreneurs or smaller companies that you work with. So how would you translate this kind of process to a company without, that doesn't have multiple departments with different stakeholders and
Yeah.
all of that? I mean,
Yeah.
some companies, even a 10-person company has stakeholders in it, but you get my
Yeah.
drift a little bit.
Totally.
Yeah.
No, I'm actually really glad that you brought that up because I did mention some very big companies, obviously, but I also I'm an advisor for 2 different startups in this in the tech space.
Mhm.
I have a client right now, which is an agency, which is a very small agency that's actually a collective. So there's a founder and then they have other people that they contract with. So I actually do work with smaller organizations. And I think at the end of the day, I like to say many of us suffer similarly. So the problems that you get in big companies, you're getting a lot of those same the challenges in the smaller companies. And, I think the beauty of the experience that I bring to the table is there's a lot of things I've seen and have experienced myself that I can actually help smaller organizations say like, hey, I've seen this, let's not do this. Let's do this instead. And
Yeah.
it really comes down to retrofitting to what is the environment that I am actually consulting in or coaching in. So at the end of the day, it's all business and we're trying to drive business impact. So,
100%.
whether
Yeah.
it's a big company or a small company, a lot of the stuff applies.
I love what you said a little while ago, that it's about inviting, educating, and exciting the potential customer. So how do you do that? One of your superpowers is storytelling. So
Yeah.
how do you go about telling a good story, like so that it's inviting, educating, and exciting? I'm fascinated by this concept of storytelling. So talk to me about, like, was that like a natural gift on your part, or did you like teach yourself how to tell a good story for your clients?
I think it's changed so much, it's evolved so much over time. Some of that is with the, explosion of social media and digital. And I've had to even get more comfortable in finding my own voice. And so going through it myself as a person and as a brand that I now have with my company. Again, when I'm giving people guidance, it comes from a place of experience. I've done it for myself. I've also done it in a seat where I am leading that for an agency that I'm working for or a brand that I'm working for. So, you asked sort of what's the process or how do you do that? I think, again, it goes back to what am I actually trying to communicate to them? There's some clarity around that. Where am I trying to move them with this touch point, with this piece of communication I'm going to have, with this story that I'm telling? And we have to be clear. Are we trying to use this to educate? Are we trying to use them to invite them in? Are we trying to use this to shift their behavior?
Is there an order that you need to go in? Do you need to educate first and then invite, then shift, or is there
Yeah,
an order to that?
I think there's an element right out of the gate that is educating. It's educating them about whatever it is that you want to do, but there has to be a foundational element. They have to know that you exist and then form a perception and a sentiment around you before they're going to even consider liking and signing up and all of these things. So there's this combination. I think first is educating. And especially if you're a new company or a new person using your voice, there has to be a lot of educating. And I will say without expectation, because it takes a lot longer in this era that we're in with so much content, with so much communication out there. It takes a lot. We have to stay dedicated. So it's kind of, if you're a company, you're trying to sell something, it is educate, 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 soft sell. Educate, 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 soft sell. And when you mix that, when you invert that, it can be a real turnoff to people, and people make decisions very quickly. Like there's not a lot of room forgiveness a lot of times with consumers these days.
Yeah.
So, at the end of the day, people hate being sold to. So I think being really clear about what it is that you're trying to do, where you're trying to move them.
Mm-hmm.
Think education and patience. So without expectation that they're going to, after one post, all of a sudden buy something.
Totally.
And then through that education, you're inviting them into the kind of funnel more. And then you can start to play with what sales messaging, will resonate with this audience, and how heavy-handed do I want to be with it?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And what I'm hearing from you is, instead of thinking, you said educate, soft sell, right? Instead of it being like, buy my widget, which, sometimes you have to be direct.
Yes.
But that it's more like an invitation. I'm linking that to when you said invite, right?
And part of that education, and you truly have to, I think, to be truly successful at it, you have to believe it yourself, that whatever you're doing, whatever you're putting out into the world, whether it's a story, a line that you're sending just to have a good day type thing, or you actually are trying to sell them, buy this thing, the thread that I think is so critical is you truly believe that it's adding value to their life, to their whatever it is that they would be touching it for, consuming it for, or buying it for. Otherwise, it's just like more junk, more noise, more. So that I think is one of the biggest things that we have to remember in storytelling, that we want to be conveyed through that storytelling, is how is this actually going to add value to the reader?
Yeah. Okay. I got a personal marketing question for you. Okay. It just came up when you said that. Okay. No more noise. Okay. I was like, I wrote a newsletter. We send out a podcast email once a week, and then we send out something that I write once a week. And over the weekend, I wrote this newsletter, and I sent it to my team to, give it the once over, catch the typos, tell me that made no sense, whatever. Right. Like they're like, that segue, that did not work. What do you mean? It totally worked in my head. But I asked if you guys love these newsletters. Like we're going through this whole sort of, like I said, Phoenix Rising, this whole shift. And so I'm questioning everything that we're doing. Like I'm evaluating everything that we're doing. So I asked my team, I said, if you weren't my team reading this, but someone on our newsletter list getting this email, would you read it? Is this something that you would skip over, read? And I think it's an interesting question, because the answer that I got back, and I'm not sure that we're going to do this, but I'm going to ask you the question on it. Okay. My one person on my team said, I'm not saying to do this, but this great piece of writing, super helpful. Really, it's very content heavy, but I don't think people are overwhelmed by email, and they want short and sweet, and emails work if you're selling a product and there's a sale, but they don't necessarily work for this. Like, it's intimate, it's heartfelt, you're telling a real story, and there's lessons in it that people can pull. What about moving this to Substack? And I was like, oh, interesting. Okay. And, there would be a whole different thing, right? Social to Substack, and there's subscription there too, but it's people are going there to read the story versus an email. They're like trying to get through their email and clear their inbox. So thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It kind of goes back to what I said a minute ago about what message are you trying to convey, and being clear on that. And that's not just clear on that when you're doing the doing of creating the email and doing the writing. That is when you promote your email, saying, this is what you're going to get in my email, sign up for my email. Then people know. And then the people who are receiving it, if it's sign up for my emails, you're going to get these authentic stories that I'm telling you, XYZ, then people who want that are going to be the people who sign up for it.
Yeah.
If you tell them, hey, it's a mixture of these things, it's some of this, it might be special offers from the guests that are on my show, then again, they know. And so it's really just about managing setting the expectations of your audience, and then managing to that. And so, I think that again, the people who sign up for it are like, oh, actually, you know what? This is a gem in my inbox. I'm going to save this one, or I'm going to read it. Or the other thing is, because there's so much content these days and people do subscribe to so many things, I think what happens is people read it more than we know. People see it more than we know. They just don't necessarily like comment or engage, tell you. So I say that because I too have a monthly email. And the one that I sent out most recently shared a story from the recent leadership development workshop that I led. And I must have received like 15 to 20 emails back commenting on it, telling me I like this or asking me a question. Again, those people are receiving my emails in the other months. It was just that month I wrote something that really was compelling to them. So we just have to learn and what the audience is going to react to. And sometimes you're going to strike gold, and it doesn't happen all the time though. Again, like that was a win, but I don't expect, again, I'm going to manage my own expectations. I don't expect that my October email is going to have that same reaction. It may. I just encourage everyone, keep going, stay committed to putting the content out there. Just because you're not seeing and hearing comments or engagement, it doesn't mean that it's not being received. Just really think through that lens of, does it add value to my audience or not?
And you said like expectations on how long it takes for the marketing to work. What is the time horizon that people should expect when they start a new marketing campaign or process?
Some of that does depend on the budget that you have. But if you can throw all the money at it, then you're just going to get more eyeballs on it. And if you're really strategic about the insights of who you're reaching and how you're reaching them, then you can make that happen so much more quickly. There's just a lot of factors in that. There's a product that I consult for this company. It's O3 Waterworks, it's called, and it uses ozone instead of using cleaning agents in your house or in your laundry. Anyway, that is a brand that is so new to market, and actually people have fears about ozone. They're like, well, wait. And so again, like that is going to take a lot longer and a lot more.
Like maybe they should change the name of their business. You're like, okay. But I get the point
of educating people that actually you can use it to for good things, and it turns in. But again, like that's a really good example of something that is new to market.
And there's a barrier to understanding.
Exactly. So I think, those are factors that we have to take into consideration. Are there a lot of people saying the same thing that you are? Are you trying to launch something in like a sea of others? Then again, it comes down to, are you really differentiating? How are you going about it? And it just takes a while. Like you're not going to get off the ground in 3 months and start selling frenetically. Or like with my podcast, I remember this wonderful woman, I asked for guidance in the very beginning, and she was like, your goal is to stay consistent. I have had my show now for over 2 years. I just launched, I think, my 122nd episode. And now I think that people do know about it and people do watch for it. And I get people telling me, oh, I heard this or that, or watch this one. And I'm always surprised though, that actually, people pay attention to it. But again, it takes time. And just when you think you're starting to break through, there's so much more work to be done. Or to your point, you're looking at your company and you're saying, how do I optimize this? And so you're going to continue you want to evolve it. You want it to be the best that it can be. It goes back to everything we've talked about here today. So when you take that mindset to it, you're always going to want to be seeking to grow it. But again, like just know that there's a lot of factors in the very beginning. If you're not putting money into it or time or energy, then you're not going to see the return.
Yeah, it's not going to grow for sure.
And and you really need to find value in and being able to articulate the value in all the other metrics of, that come with growth rather than just revenue out of the gate.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. I love it. I'm just going to share a little funny story, and then I'm going to ask my final questions to you. Yeah. So I do events, and before the last event that we did, I got a spray tan because, I'm wearing a short skirt. I want the legs to look a little less pasty white kind of thing. And the woman who came to the hotel suite to do the spray tan, because it was a mobile spray tan service, she was like, I was telling my sister that I'm coming on, I'm going to do you. And I was like, how do you know me? and it's because there's billions of people in this world, right?
Exactly.
And I think I'll flip my hair back and think I'm all that and more, but really, who am I, right? And she had been listening to the podcast and she was fangirling. And I was like, oh, that's so great because, we've been doing it since I think 2020. So, and I think we were doing 3 episodes a week at one point. So we have, I think we're like over 400 episodes at this point, but we're not doing that anymore. Don't flip out, everyone. It's just once a week now. We've ratcheted it back. But yeah, you have to stick with it. And then you'll get these little yummy, exciting, oh, that's cool. I love that.
You're like, oh, it's actually making the impact that I want it to.
Totally. Exactly. So if you're listening and you want to send me a comment or let me know you're listening, I love that. Okay. Before I ask my final questions, because I do have final questions for you, where can people find you? Is it social media? Is it your website? If they want to seek you out, how do they find you?
Pretty simple. Everything's under the SLG Impact umbrella. So on LinkedIn, I also post, I'm Shauna Griffiths. I post on my own channel on LinkedIn as well. But Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, my website. So it's all slgimpact.com. It's at SLG Impact on all those various channels. My podcast, which is one of the things that I do post, is the content, which I can't wait till you're on my show very soon, is this with Shauna Griffiths. So all very easy to remember, either my name or SLG Impact. So, and like I said, I do have a once a month email newsletter that I put out called The Real Deal. You'll get a lot of authentic takeaways in anything that you follow me on.
If what she's saying, her perspective, her authenticity land with you, please go find her on social or on her website or on her podcast.
Yeah.
Okay. So how would you define an unstoppable woman?
Really comes down to mindset. It is, as we said in the beginning of this show, what are we doing? What is the mindset we have to find ways to win every day, to keep making plays, to create the life and the existence that we want to really continue to evolve and fuel our optimal performance.
So good. So good. Okay. Final question. What do you love most about yourself?
I think my commitment to authenticity and just relentless pursuit of optimal performance for myself and for others. Yeah, I just feel so passionate about it, and it really is my own North Star, and it's what drives me on a daily basis, the combination of those things.
So thank you so much, Shauna, for joining us. Everyone, thank you for listening to the Unstoppable Woman podcast. So good to have you here as loyal listeners, subscribers. I'm Amira Alvarez. I am, as you know, the founder and CEO of The Unstoppable Woman. And please check us out on social under The Unstoppable Woman or under my name, Amira Alvarez, or seek us out on our website where we have lots of information about all the things that we are doing, including upcoming events. So that website is theunstoppablewoman.com. Okay, that's a wrap today. Have a great, great, great day and make your life exquisite.